All right, it's a couple minutes after 7, and we're going to get started for our meeting. So I'll call the meeting to order. And we did have a possible motion to go into executive session. The board decided we didn't need to do that, so we skipped that. That was going to start at 6:45. Next item on the agenda is any additions or deletions or changes to the agenda that was published. I don't think so. So, and public comment, I think we'll have public comment. If anybody has any public comment besides what's on the agenda? No? Does anybody have any public comment concerning the agenda? The fourth item is a discussion and select board decision regarding Lot 15. Just a couple of items to note. One is typically VCAM, we're live, and all you would be home now watching us live. But because we ended up moving the meeting upstairs because we expected a large crowd, VCAM is recording and helping us with the audio portion, but it's unfortunately can't be live. So you'll be able to watch this again over and over, but just starting tomorrow, just check their schedule. The next thing is if everyone would please sign in, especially if you have anything you want to say or plan to talk. Otherwise, Val, we'll have to call everybody individually afterwards and get your names. Let's see. The next item I'll just mention is the select board, through our council, had issued a motion to stay to the court. This issue around the town map had a 120-day countdown, sort of a deadline that's in the state statute that way. And we had put a motion to stay to the environmental court, and so that motion was rejected, happened to be today, just in time. So, that, I think we were gonna meet on this anyways, one way or the other, but just to note that that is not outstanding at this point. And this issue that we're talking about is concerning the DRB's denial of the applicant's permit for the applicant who's going on Lot 15. They denied it for 3 different issues. One issue was they were not, in their opinion, not meeting the town map, which is part of the town plan. And because of that denial, the issue gets handed to the select board, and the select board has 120 days to decide whether to move forward. It has the statutory ability, because of the town map denial, to proceed with through eminent domain, to decide what to do, and that is one thing we can choose to do. So we're at that 120-day timeline, and that's what the select board is going to decide for today. We had talked that maybe to start off the discussion, we could potentially have a motion by the select board, and maybe we'll start that way. Andrea, did you have a motion you wanted to make?
This is just the way in which the formal process can begin, and we can then have what Phil has described as, I think we have 45 minutes allocated for public comment on it, and I think then the select board will, we will all express our opinions and how we've arrived at that after the public comment period. So I'm going to just start by making a motion that what we're doing now is making notice for a public hearing for the purpose of acquiring land and interests in land for the public purpose of protecting water quality of Patrick Brook and the prevention of flooding on town and state roads, and an enhancement to the existing canal walk. Noted on a portion of Lot 15 in the Commerce Park subdivision. Notice is hereby given that the Town of Hinesburg Select Board will hold a public hearing and conduct a site visit on October 7th, 2019, for the purpose of inspecting lands and hearing testimony and comment regarding the necessity for the designation of acquiring land and rights in land in connection with the official map that so designates that one of the purposes could be for protecting water quality. That's a public interest on Lot 15 in Commerce Park subdivision. At this hearing, the Select Board will also hear testimony and comment regarding compensation to be paid to landowners for acquiring such lands and rights in land. The land to be inspected is a portion of Lot 15, which parcel of land is located southerly and easterly of Commerce Park and northerly of Mechanicsville Road in Hinesburg. The property is further depicted as Lot 15 on the subdivision plan entitled Bernard and June Giroux, Victor and Ramona Giroux, 15-lot commercial subdivision, Hinesburg, Vermont, Site Plan West, Sheet 3 of 6, prepared by Phelps Engineering, dated April 23rd, 1986, and recorded in map slide 108 of the Town of Hinesburg records. The hearing will begin at 5 p.m. On October 7th, 2019, at the Town of Hinesburg Town Office, 10632 Vermont, Route 116, Hinesburg, Vermont. The Select Board will conduct a site visit following the commencement of the hearing. That's my motion.
Every word.
Okay, so that motion seconded. So we'll open that up to the audience. We're trying to limit it to 45 minutes for a number of reasons. One is the Select Board, I think, has met every Monday since maybe Thanksgiving, yeah. And this was an extra meeting that was added on. I think number two is the Select Board has received a lot of input already. Email, phone calls, front porch forum, legal advice, historical information that we've received. But with that said, we're listening, so we want to continue to do that. But at the same time, we are well informed. We know this issue inside and out at this point. But we offer additional input from the public. We're going to try to limit it, each person, to about 2 minutes, and let everybody speak once before somebody speaks a second time, if we could. Please address the Select Board. We're the ones making the decision, so try to focus it up front here. We will listen. And I also ask that, if possible, refrain from clapping or cheering. This is a public discussion, and that public discussion is the piece that, I think should be celebrated, that we're able to, as a town, have a good discussion. Everybody has input, and people are here not for their own personal benefit, but really to benefit the town. So I appreciate that fact, and so we'll give everybody an opportunity to weigh in. So with that, I think, you guys all set? Yeah? So let's give it a shot. Does anyone have any discussion? Frank, I guess when you start, too, we have a microphone. We know that the audio, the acoustics in here are not very good, although I think Eric's got it working very well. But if somebody can't hear very well, just let us know, so we want everyone to hear what's said. Are you going to bring the mic to
I
Frank?
was going to bring it to people.
Yeah, so Frank's first one up. Thank you, Joy.
Hi, Frank Haas. I have no idea what Andrea said. The motion delaying things until October, does this mean that you're not making a decision on eminent domain tonight? Or if you go beyond the 14th, are you saying that's eminent domain? I apologize. Like I said, I didn't really understand what has been proposed here.
Good question.
I
Do you
will
want-
try to explain. The process that's laid out in statute for us taking action is we have to begin by identifying that we have an interest in this parcel, and we start by having a hearing that says publicly that we do have an interest in finding out more about this parcel, and that in order to come and make a decision, we have to do our due diligence, and it gives us time to do that. We can't just say we're doing eminent domain and start that process. Anytime the town wants to take action, we have to have all the facts for us, before us. And in this situation, we would need an appraisal, a determination of what the value is of the piece of land, and a survey, and possibly some other hydrological information. I'm basing this motion that I made on my understanding of some of the findings of fact that came out in the denial that I feel is important for the public and for the select board to consider for the public good. So yes, we're not making a decision that we're going to acquire the land. We can't make that decision today when we don't know what it costs or what the actual acreage is. So this is the way we officially start the process.
And that motion is really setting the table. If the select board was to move forward, that motion sets that forward. And because the motion's on the table, doesn't necessarily say that's the way the select board's going, but that's to sort of start the process.
I wasn't planning to speak yet, Len Duffy, but I'd like to get this clarified. Are the landowners going to be compensated as anybody else who would be come along and have an option for this whatever it is, 6 months or 8 months period of time?
Yeah.
If the board was to move forward, the compensation piece is clear that it has to happen.
No, but I mean, you effectively making an option on the land. You're tying up the land presently. So, and whether you pay for it now or then, is it going to be paid for whether or not this proceeds?
I would say one of the reasons that we are doing this and setting that date late is that there are many other issues that are before the court, and it gives time for those issues to be resolved.
Okay, so this is all about Hannaford's then?
No,
It seems to be.
yes, it is. It is about the fact that we have an opportunity now. We could make this decision at another point in time as well.
So if Hannaford is denied, you probably won't go through with this.
We might.
You might.
We might,
I
yeah,
get it.
because I think we have it on the official map for a reason.
Okay.
Bill, I have
Go ahead,
one
Tom.
comment. I would just like Andrea to clarify, when you say we are doing this, who are you referring to?
Well, I have made this motion. This is what I believe is an important issue for the select board to discuss. So I have prepared this motion, and it's up for the board to decide whether they agree or do not.
Hi, Kate Meyer, Hinesburg resident. I have two questions. I guess it's two parts. The Board member Morganti lives across the street from Lot 15 and could be considered an abutter. She also has actively testified against Hannaford's application. Is this considered a conflict of interest? Can she vote on this issue given what appears to be bias against the current applicant and her proximity to the property? And then the second part, if the select board member Morganti votes on this matter, are we opening ourselves up to future litigation by the applicant or landowner? Thank you.
I'll answer that question. I mean, obviously, no answer's perfect, but I think we've had legal advice that says that Andrea could vote on whether we wanted to move this process forward, but would need to abstain from any final decision. So that's sort of the legal advice we've gotten on that. And it's been an issue that we've talked about, and I know that Andrea has, was concerned about that too.
So if she does vote on it, we could be held to
Well, I suppose anything we do, we could be held. So now, the advice right now is that she could vote on an issue like today, but not in a farther, as it moved on through the process. That's the advice we've gotten.
I have stated that at several other meetings, that I feel that I can bring forward this information. When I testified at the Act 250 Environmental Court, I was testifying as a citizen who was familiar with the canal walk and its application and its process. I have never testified or spoken about this in relation to being a neighbor. And so making this motion, the board is not acting in a quasi-judicial manner. When the board decides on whether to acquire it, then that is a quasi-judicial decision that can be appealed and go back and forth, and that is not a decision that I would take part in.
But your motion isn't a stalling? It's not stalling that, or the applicant should see that as a stall factor or a stall tactic?
It's not stopping anything from happening.
Yeah, no, it's a good question, so,
Yeah.
and it's been discussed. Next. Where's Joy? Oh, yeah, okay.
Hi, I'm Bill Baker. I might take more than 2 minutes, and I apologize, but I have a different perspective on this. Probably I have more experience with eminent domain than anyone in this room. My grandfather bought a farm in New Hampshire in 1900 and allowed the Appalachian Trail Club to put the trail over our land. In 1987, my father got a letter from the federal government saying they're going to take 250 acres from us under eminent domain to protect the Appalachian Trail. My father went to court and lost. And I'm not an attorney. But in the court, basically the federal government's argument was this is an asset or a thing, a one-off, unique trail that needs to be protected for the best interest of the citizens of the United States. This lot 15 is not a unique property. We have plenty of open space in Hinesburg, Vermont. If we were interested in establishing a park, we could go to someone and ask to purchase the property. This is not a downtown urban area where there is no open land available, and it's a unique piece of property. This is not the appropriate use of eminent domain. I'm not an attorney. We're going to get an appraisal if this boondoggle goes through from an outside source, and the Giroux family will be compensated. What I can say to you folks is, in my personal experience, we used to be able to say, we own from our doorstep to the top of a 3,000-foot mountain. We don't today. You can't put a price tag on that. My second point is we know what this is all about. It's not about wanting to establish a park in Hinesburg. These same group of people who want to establish this park were the same ones who did not want to support the Bissonnette playing fields. They did not want to allocate monies from that to establish playing fields that were much needed. It's not transparent. It's not real. They just want to stop Hannaford, and this is their outrageous tactic to stop it. My final comment is I can't believe the hubris and arrogance of these people to ask me and the rest of us to take our tax dollars to support, I'll call it again, their boondoggle. If they want to park there, take your money out of your 401k, go to the Giroux family and buy it, and keep it open for the rest of us. Don't ask me, a taxpayer, to support something that I don't want to support. It's not a vital interest to the town. We have plenty of open land. We have the Hinesburg Forest. We have open spaces. That's all I got to say.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Joy. Keith Roberts, Levine Hill Road. Good evening, everybody. First off, thank you for what you're doing. We have lots of disagreements in town, but we all assume goodwill. We all assume that you're doing the right thing, that you believe is in the best interest of the town. So thank you. I'm going to echo the comments of a few people this evening and what I put on the record last Monday night. I think the term that I used was catastrophically irresponsible to take this property by eminent domain. But I'm not going to elaborate on that any further because it's on the record, and I know that other people have that to say, and I appreciate your concern, Phil, for time. But I am going to add two thoughts. Well, I had three. I'm going to scratch the third one because Bill just covered some of it. The two thoughts I'm going to add are, one, let's contrast this process with the Bissonnette Field process, where there was a clearly identified need for a very long time for something the town needed, and yet the town didn't even think about engaging in this kind of process. I understand their timing issues here under statute with 120 days, so there is a slight difference in that regard. But it was never thought to take the property by eminent domain, and then, in fact, development of the property was left essentially to private fundraising. You can do that when the property is donated or the way the Bissonnette Field project was, but you can't do that in eminent domain, and I'll get there in a minute. So on the eminent domain issue, well, actually, let me ask a question first before I finish, just to clarify. So would it be fair to characterize tonight's hearing as really merely an expression of interest of the town in Lot 15, therefore starting the process to consider taking it by eminent domain?
Yeah, I think it is a notice of a hearing, so it is starting the process. I mean, we couldn't do it if the select board wanted to do it. We couldn't do it today. It's a long process. So the motion there says, let's take step one. That's what the motion says.
So essentially, at the end of this public hearing, there's going to be an up or down vote. Do we express interest and move forward or not?
That's my hope.
Okay, all right. So then, rather than warn you about the legal issues involved, I will merely put them on the table and suggest that you get really good advice about this. I am not an eminent domain expert, but there's a number of characteristics of eminent domain that really need to be paid attention to. One is the authority established by the public need for the land. I question whether there really is one. The second one is severing some portion of the land from the entire lot. I believe under Vermont law you are allowed to do that, but I don't think that's very advisable. For reason number three, which is the value or the amount that's payable. I'm not sure about this, but the gist I'm getting is that you've got an unwilling landowner and therefore will be incented to fight the appraisal that you're going to issue, particularly if it's on a small portion, severed portion of Lot 15, because that leaves the rest of Lot 15 that the town doesn't take essentially useless to another developer. The final reason is the use of this land has to be for public use, with one very limited exception outlined in a case from Connecticut a couple years ago on economic development. ironically. So the last thing I'm going to say, and I was really hesitant to say this, but I think I got to put it out there. As I think everyone knows, I'm running for select board against Jeff, who's right here. And I really didn't want this to be a single issue election because I think Jeff and I both bring a lot more to the table than this issue, but I made my stance on this very clear. So hypothetically, if we go forward tonight, and hypothetically, if I'm in one of those seats in October, I can pledge to you which way I'm going to vote. I'll finish by saying this, and it's not quite as appropriate as when I wrote it down this morning, but oftentimes when I'm counseling clients, I like to use movie quotes to make it a little more pragmatic and useful to them. And the one that I wrote down for this is from The Graduate, 1967 Dustin Hoffman movie, when his father says, "Ben, this whole idea seems pretty half-baked." Thank you.
Okay. I will say, the legal issues you talked about, we have discussed exactly those. We've gotten good advice, and we're not acting without a well-informed board. Okay. Carl?
Is this working? Hello? Okay. My name is Carl Bolin, and I really appreciate this opportunity to speak. And I guess I'd like to play a little bit of devil's advocate, but say I totally respect those that will see this differently than I'm going to present my views tonight. I would urge you to take that first step because you're not locking us into anything. But not taking that step could remove the official map as a tool that we want as a community under the statute that creates that. And I did talk to staff last week who did confirm you could opt out at any point in time. In terms of the public hearing in October, I don't know whether that's enough time, but I think it is important, and you tried to get court decisions before you made your decision. Whether that can happen by October, I don't know, but I would encourage whatever you do between now and October, it not cost a lot of money. You try not to do an appraisal because you wait for the court decision, because I think that decision might be a factor in what we want to do. Related to that, there was testimony that some of the information you have might be outdated, might not be objective. I urge you to look at whatever studies, and maybe you've seen everything you need to see, but you take this time to update whatever information you need. And finally, the Planning Commission right now is revising the official map. And I think before you remove that as an option, it's important for us as a community to be engaged in terms of why that is an official map or why part of that should be. And I don't think Front Porch Forum, I don't think, while this public hearing is helpful, I think something that can be more of a discussion with expertise and not emotions would be a much better way for us to come to grips with what is best for Lot 15. So I urge you to do what would give us the most flexibility, and I recommend that you have staff set up a process or a plan for us as a community to be engaged with ourselves and with professional consultants to really see how Lot 15 might be best for us as a community. And thanks for all you do and for having this public hearing.
Thank you.
John Lyman. I guess I'd like clarification if the select board has the power to take this over with eminent domain, or will it have to be voted on by the public as well?
Oh, good question. Good question. So the eminent domain is one of the powers that the select board has. We really don't have too many others. We can't spend your money, you vote for that. But eminent domain is one that we have. I've never been involved in it. I don't know that Hinesburg's ever been involved in it. But I would say is not a very easy process. And in this case, using it again for the purpose of the the planning tool, the town map, is probably one that has not yet been challenged. So it would be, I'd say, a difficult row to hoe. So, but, you know, it could be done. Anyone else?
But it doesn't preclude us going to a vote, a townwide vote for
Right.
the actual acquisition.
So-
Because we would be expending town dollars, and I personally feel like I would not want to spend any tax dollars without there being a townwide vote when we actually get to have all the facts and information on the table so that everybody can make an informed decision based on real numbers, real science on why this is an important acquisition. And that then, you know, we can't make this decision based on sound bites. We really need that data to make an informed decision by the voters.
Right, and so I think that's a clarification. So I think it doesn't, you know, to move forward with the eminent domain, I think is in the select board's hands. It's not a sort of a town vote. In fact, and we were advised that that's not the way to do it, if we were to do it. But to spend the town money would require town approval, so sort of a backdoor, I guess. Does that sound? Yep. All right. How are we doing on our time here?
Ruth Ayer. Boy, I really got a big problem with this. I mean, you know, Geralds have been in this town for how many years? Were they ever advised when the town map was prepared that that lot was going to be on that town map as it is? Can anybody answer that? You were not. That's great. I think it's public now. It is now.
All right, please, you're talking to the select board, so.
I am.
Were they informed? I wasn't there. I know that the town map was done in accordance to the rules. It went through the planning commission. It was approved by the select board, and that required some public hearing. Now, how well it was communicated to the landowners, you know, I've heard not very well. So, you know, I'll say that.
And I just heard somebody say that we don't want to spend town money that we don't have to spend. I believe that my figure is correct. It was almost $69,000 that we've already spent on this. And God knows how much more it's going to be if you try to take that land from this Giro family. I'm sorry, I cannot support that.
Okay?
Anyway, Andrew, how much of Lot 15 are you talking about the town perhaps trying to obtain through eminent domain? What portion of it?
Well, I think that from the maps that we've looked at and the various testimony and evidence that was presented through the DRB meetings, it's probably approximately 2 acres of what appears to be the least developable portion of the property, which would leave the remaining approximately 3 acres to be developed.
But it would, by taking that action, forbid any entity from developing the lot at large. You're basically
Not the full 5 acres, but certainly, and that was, I believe, the intention when it was placed on the official map, that it could be developed with a private-public partnership. And that at the time that a developer would come in, that there could be discussions on what their proposal was. You know, that I believe, when it was made the decision to go on the official map, it was understood that a portion of the property was not developable because it had been investigated by several other proposals, and therefore, you know, a portion of it could be used for, the town could, by putting it on the official map, it was envisioned that maybe in the decades afterwards, that the library might come back to that lot, that town offices might be expanded, that a portion of it could be used for green infrastructure and/or a park, but it was left open because it wasn't seen, it was seen as an important parcel because of its geographic location within the village, but that there was nothing imminent happening because for almost 30 years prior, nothing had happened on that lot.
But if it was such an important issue, why is it only now that eminent domain's been brought up? It seems so transparent to me as a taxpayer that this is just a way of stopping or preventing Hannaford from doing what it wants to do if it ever got the permits. If it was so important, why didn't this come up years ago?
Yeah, that's a good question, because it certainly looks that way, and it's fair enough to say that. You know, as a select board member, what I'll say is, the developer went through the DRB the first go-around, and it was on the, you know, the town map was an issue. The DRB determined that the language that they put in to comply with the public use, the farmer's market and whatnot, the language they put in there, the DRB determined at that point that it met the town map. Then the developer had to come back through a second time and, for whatever reasons, changed the language a little bit on how they were complying with the town map. And this time around, the DRB decided it did not meet the intent of the town map. And now, because of that, that automatically now, by state statute, sends the issue to the select board to make this decision that we hope to make, I hope we make today. So that's, you know, you're right. I mean, if you step back, you go, obviously, this is just happening because of the developer, and it's a way to battle it. And there are, I'm sure, some people looking at it that way. But as a select board member, what's really happened is it's been brought to us through the process from the DRB denial.
It does, again, as a taxpayer, seem to me as though eminent domain is being used as a weapon to prevent a potential taxpayer from, you know, coming to this town. Now, I just want to conclude. I have friends on both sides of this issue of Hannaford, and I have great respect for Andrea, and I'm sorry you're leaving the board. But I want to separate out the Hannaford argument and just look at this piece of land and say, you're taking what could be a taxable property, a property that would be used and is zoned for that purpose, you're taking it away. I think this town needs more, you know, tax revenue coming in, and what this step seems to be wrong, in my opinion, and I hope that you defeat this motion tonight.
Okay, thank you.
Paul Lamberson. Just one thing I want to share and reflect on is I do appreciate the concern about stormwater quality. And as I think of the things that affect my view on this, I can't go ice skating because we have an ice rink that's underfunded. Tennis courts could use some love. I don't think we need more money for more parks downtown in our little village until some of our other projects are already caught up. On the flip side, I love Lake Champlain. And I really respect the creativity and the passion, the thoughtfulness and intelligence that goes around protecting this. I'm not anti-Hannaford. I'd shop there in a heartbeat if it were properly sized. And I really think they're proposing some things that haven't been tested around stormwater. I think we're entering a new age around stormwater management. Just look at our own roads and driveways, wherever you may live. Our winters are different, our melts are different, our thaws are different, and as I understand things, our standards have risen, and appropriately. And I hope, regardless of the decision you make tonight, you continue to fight like hell to protect the stormwater regs that are in place.
Hi, I'm Jeff French. I'm a member of the Planning Commission, and I'm also, as Keith said, running for Select Board. I'm torn, quite honestly. You asked me a week ago, the even mention of eminent domain, I would laugh you out of the room. But I've studied it, and I've been on the Planning Commission for 4 years now. And that is a commission, and the town, how we're organized with how many commissions and boards of volunteers who are appointed by the Select Board, who've spent thousands of hours working on input into a town plan, which the official map is part of. And they have gone over that over and over again. We've taken public input. We've gone through the cycle. We've delivered to you the town plan and the official map, knowing what it means. And it's been passed by this board. And my concern is, if you don't make a message and the official map is gone, every single developer behind this one, it's not, just throw it out. There won't be any mention of the public map. And I just want to make it clear that the official map isn't just parks. It's roads, it's sidewalks, it's infrastructure. And it's part of that is to help get those things built by development. And if we throw that out, how's that going to be done? And so my fear is you're handing the keys over to development where they're going to go to their profit model, which is South Burlington, and you're going to have clusters of residential all over the place. And those that are nice are going to give us something, but it's going to be half-baked, or they're going to do nothing at all, get denied by the DRB, wait 120 days and say, okay, I just saved some money. That's my concern. That's where my being torn is it's a part of this plan to help this town move forward. And I'm not saying we need to develop everything overnight, but we do need to have a plan. And this today is going to send a very clear message, and it's going to alter the way this town looks in 20, 50 years, not just for Hannaford here today. So that's my one big concern is what does that send? And the other one is on, just to address some of the stormwater concerns that I have, is, without going into all of the technical details, during this phase of all this court action, the state of Vermont changed their stormwater regulations in 2016, which basically says if you impair the waterways of this town, you're going to have to pay to fix that or face fines. So Hannaford, if they move in, they're building on 2012 regs, not 2016. So if that thing starts putting stormwater and impacts our waterways, the state's going to come to the town, not Hannaford, and say, you need to remediate that. I mean, we're already looking at wastewater problems, and these are hundreds of $1,000 million problems, not, a $12,000 a year tax credit. That's my concern. And so I'm juggling. I've been fighting this constantly. And I just worry about where the town is going. And I totally agree with the Giroux family. It's their land. It's their investment. And I hope that if we do go down something like this, we work with them directly and figure out how to make it right and make them whole. And that's all I can say. And I just hope, I like options. And if you vote no to not do anything tonight, that will send a message tonight that official maps don't matter in this town, right? If you don't say anything and you just kick the can forward, well, that says something too that I think most people don't want to hear. If you say yes, we're going to do it, it's an option to at least talk about it, and you're not sending that message yet. And you can go through that with the family and with the landowner, and you can even look at working with Hannaford and what can we do and how can we make this happen, And then if it gets to the end point of, okay, the town does what it does, they made the Giroux family whole, there's nothing to say the town can't enter into a public-private partnership either with the Giroux family or another commerce thing and put something in there that fits this town. We all agree there needs to be a bigger grocery store. I think everybody says that. But there's also a whole lot of development that's going to be going on in the Village Northwest, and there's no reason a store can't go there along 116. So this isn't an all or nothing, but my concern is the next 50 years, not just today. So thank you.
Thank you. Okay.
I have a very
You
deep
have to say who
concern.
you are, Gil.
Oh, yes. Gil Coates. History was mentioned. I don't know exactly how much property the town actually owns, but I wonder how much of that was taken by eminent domain. And I would doubt that any of it was.
I don't think any, right.
It's a very, to me, it's a very serious step to use eminent domain to take someone's property. And I think of the farmer off Interstate 91, who they took his farm. I can't remember if it was an entrance or exit ramp that was going directly through the barn. He boarded up the inside, from the inside, his house. Lay down on his bed with his gun and set the house on fire. That's an extreme case. But to me, taking someone's property should be the last resort unless it is truly, truly significant. This land is not Yosemite. It's not the Everglades. It's a commercial, small 5-acre lot. I don't think it justifies eminent domain. Thank you.
Thank you. So we'll do a couple more anyways.
I'm just curious, there's a lot of conversation about taking the land. I'd like to understand more about
you have
that.
to. You should say who you are, please.
Oh, I'm Dee
Yeah.
Dee Erb, sorry. My understanding was this property has been on the market for a very long period of time. Is that accurate or not?
30 years, something like that. I mean,
30 years? Okay. Pardon me? So the idea that that the town might step in and take this land away from the landowner, I don't think is accurate. And I know it would, if we go forward, the town goes forward with this, compensation would be a very high priority. But I'm just confused about people's conversation about taking of the land. If you could clarify that, perhaps.
Well, if this was to move forward, then there is a pretty strong process of appraising the land, and then some negotiating, and each side gets to say what they have, and then I think the court ends up making the final decision. So I'm on record saying, if anything was to happen, that I would want to see the Giroux family made whole, whatever that means. But so we'll do maybe two more? 3, 4, yeah.
I'm Rob Bast. I'm not running for selectman. But I was on the board 30 some odd years ago when Commerce Street was created, and by the Giroux family, Bernard and Victor, and in part by the Selectboard, because we got together to make, with the Giroux, to get them to build the bridge over the canal so that it would become a through road. And out of that, we had the first new through road in Hinesburg for I don't know how long. And we created an area that was dedicated to commerce, which would work because people could get in and out and go by, and it's a viable commercial area. And as Len Duffy pointed out in a post he made last week, this was times change. History has a way of changing over time to meet people's needs, and this was or to reflect people's interests, I should say. And this was a time when we had the state pushing growth centers, because if you have a compact development area, you can you have less traffic, or you have less travel back and forth, and we have more people working in town. We were all about getting more people working in town and creating commercial areas which didn't exist at the time, except in scattered locations, in the village so that people could work here and be part of this community. And because we've had people working here over many years, we have a situation where we still have a volunteer fire department. We still have people who can get there during the course of a day and support public needs in that way. So now we're in a time when developing a piece of land for a business is difficult. There are many hurdles to go through to do permitting. Any builder, architect, or developer will tell you that you have to do a lot to get it right. Providing municipal services such as sewer and water makes that a whole lot easier. This is a location with others of its kind that does provide that and gives us an asset as a community that's important. And I would urge the board in making their decision, which obviously is a difficult one and has pluses and minuses, to keep in mind that this is an important, as important an aspect of our future as it was 35 years ago, and that we have limited opportunities to have something like this serve the public interest. And very few, and almost none, that could accommodate a project that was over the developable area of buildings in some of the other areas. This isn't about Hannaford. It's not about anything like that. This is about a business that could reflect our needs. No one knew that energy was going to come here. We figured out a way to make that possible within our area. It's an asset, and I hope the board will take that into account. And in general, if it were me, I probably would not be going down this path.
Marie Ayer. I would say it would be a message that I wouldn't want our town to be known for, should the vote go down this path. There are, on our town plan, plenty of green spaces that are earmarked. What this message sends to those landowners at the moment, we're going to hold your land hostage. We're going to hold it hostage until maybe a developer, you decide to develop it, because we're holding an interest in your land. And this really sends a message that Hinesburg isn't open for business unless you're the business we want. And when we say that we're going to put on the town plan parts of people's land and put it as green space, we're holding the option to take it as eminent domain or prevent it from being developed by that landowner. That's a scary message for our town to be sending out to a community and to our state.
Greg Munsell. A lot of people have talked for the Gerald brothers, and a lot of people have talked for Brian Bouger, so I don't feel this is out of line. Brian shared with me about 15 or 20 years ago, he wanted to move his grocery store. We're right in front of NRG, and he was so serious about it that he started to research it, had a blueprint drawn up, and the only thing that stopped him from that was a right-of-way. He could not get a right-of-way into his property. So that makes me wonder, if Lot 15, if it's broken up, if you take that property and you break it up, take 3 acres and leave 2 acres, is the 2 acres you're leaving, is that going to be available accessible for whoever wants to buy it on the commercial market.
You know, I'll try to give you an answer. I guess I would assume that that's how it would be broken up if it was broken up that way.
The area that I've described would not prevent access from the existing Commerce Street Extension Road. It would bring it right in there and allow for a parking lot and buildings to be on the remaining of the acreage.
That's guaranteed.
The road is there. It's the same road that is used to access the National Bank of Middlebury.
It's John Little. I just had a quick question for the select board. If voting tonight, you guys do decide to go down the road of using eminent domain, does that immediately make it so that we could be sued as a town just by starting this process? We then have a new legal fees just to...
That's a good question. I think probably that process would start too. So yes.
That seems unfortunate.
Chuck Reese. I would like to comment a little bit about some of the idea of vision and scale for this town. And for me, I just think Hanford is of the wrong scale. And I'd like to...
So, I'm sorry, so that, I don't mean to cut you off or anything. This isn't really about Hannaford's. This is really about
It's
the
lot 15.
eminent, yeah, and the town map. But go ahead.
Right. I'd like to just talk about what the intention of the Giro family had way back in 1986 when they formed the park. And I'm quoting from the Act 250 application. Commercial industrial park intended for primarily local, small scale, and startup businesses which are appropriate to the local scale of development. That's the vision that they had. So we're not putting words in their mouth, they're giving us their own words. So when Victor and Bernard started this, that's what they were thinking. And I think there is an appropriate use for Lot 15 that could have a mixed use, some businesses, but also a park, and I disagree with people who say we have plenty of spaces. We really don't have a lot of spaces downtown that are walkable and accessible, and I think this could be a reasonable way to approach a public-private way of developing and having a vision that's in line with what's been expressed well before tonight and the last, this argument with the supermarket. But, and I do hope you do not preclude the option of, working with the Giro family. And eminent domain is not something I would like to see, but I would support it if they were on board with this too. So, thank you.
Okay, we'll go with 3 more. It doesn't have to be 3, but we have at least 1 more.
Hi, my name is Tim Parent, and I have just a couple comments. You've acknowledged that there's potential for litigation, and also the need for research and hydraulic studies, engineering. And I just was curious, is the town going to pay for that? Or is it going to be paid for by some outside special interest? Has that been thought of?
Boy, I guess I get to answer them all, huh? Thanks a lot, guys. I think, yes, there would be legal fees, and, I would think that'd be on the town. Studies beyond the town. We've had people approach us saying they would provide something, but, unless I see it, I'd assume if we were to go in that direction, then the town would end up paying the bill.
So we would pay the bills, we would have control. We're not going to be beholding to someone
I guess
else.
that's a mixed bag, right? So if somebody else pays, you don't have control, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, hold on, Len, because is anybody who definitely wants to talk? And hasn't talked yet.
So first of all, Jennifer Prue, I'd like to echo the precedent that this would set. I can't imagine whether I'm small scale, large scale business wanting to come to Hinesburg, and the mere idea of seizing land for what is not an essential use is to me not what eminent domain is about. But I'm also really curious, in all this time that this has been going on, who's been paying the taxes on the property currently? And if this continues, the Giroux family can't complete a sale to Hannaford's. They sure as heck can't sell to another buyer. And where is the presumption that if they had the choice, they would even consider settling it to the town? It's their property. So that and last part, if this happens and it becomes whatever it is that people opposed to Hannaford's want it to become, who's going to pay the upkeep? I, as a town taxpayer, against this from day one, do not want to have my taxes used to subsidize this project if it is created in this manner.
Thank you. Yeah, sorry, Len. I guess you asked a question but didn't make a statement last time. So you get a bye. Oh, hold it. Next. Good.
Leroy Brace. I have a question for the board because earlier, Phil, you said that if the town was going to spend money on this land, that the voters would have to be informed and vote on this money. And then Ruthie Ayer says they've already spent $69,000 on it. How do we get a reconciliation of that money that we as taxpayers are paying if it's not something that the majority of the town wants? Or, you know, my taxes go up every year. I can't see, and how much money, that $69,000 could have been spent on the Bissonnet fields, could have been spent on the tennis courts down behind the grade school to improve the parks and the recreation places that we already have. Why are this being kind of jammed down our throat, I guess is what I'm asking. And this seems like a lot of money that's being spent.
All right, I'm just going to interject here, and those are all good points. The number $69,000, I'm not quite sure where that came from. I know how much money we've spent for legal issues in the town, and a small portion of that is concerning this issue, and it's not anywhere near that. So anyways, because if it was $69,000 that we spent on legal advice on this, I would be in the audience arguing the same way you are.
Since 2013.
Since
2013, anything related to Hannaford.
Oh, and that includes
anything related to Hannaford.
anything related, and that would be DRB issues and all that.
This is all of the legal fees since 2013 when this started.
Okay, so I'm getting clarification. So if you added up all the fees associated with Hannaford's from the DRB and whatnot, not just the select board necessarily, that would be a fair number?
Yes.
Okay.
Right. Well,
So
I
we're in
would
the
point out
60s.
that was defending the DRB's decision that in 2012 was approved. So it is our responsibility as the select board to defend the DRB's decision. Whether we agree with it or not, really it's that, and so if we don't defend the decisions of our boards, then what's the point of having regulations? We do have to spend money to defend the regulations and the decisions of our boards that have been made.
But point well taken. Any, sorry, Ryan. Yeah. Hold it. It's coming around.
I've written to the board about, do I need to put something?
No.
No.
About my opinions on the issue, but I'm still confused about this procedure. Is this a public hearing tonight?
It's a select board meeting yes, and select board meetings are public.
But it's not a public hearing on this motion.
No, not necessarily. The select board has this motion in front of them like we do any others, and the public's invited, and we invited the public to give us as much input as possible.
Has there been any warning of what this motion was before the meeting tonight?
I think it's pretty clear. DRB decision regarding Lot 15.
Okay, but not this long, very
No.
complicated
No.
motion? that
Fair enough,
everybody-
yep.
Okay. Okay, I guess I think you're making a big mistake if you pass this. I think it's going to open up money spent that you're never going to even imagine starting day one. That means today. Thank you.
Yeah. Maybe.
Yeah, Rolf Kielman. I'm on the Planning Commission, and it's a volunteer job, as you know. And we're trying to plan. And, some years ago, I think we expanded the village district pretty much by double in the northeast, northwest, even to the south to some degree. And I think we've tried very hard to try to anticipate what this town is going to look like in 50 years. And we've done, I think Chuck alluded to this, we've done some figuring. I think the newly configured village district is probably slightly over 700 acres. And of that, and this includes Lot 15, it includes several portions of property that are designated on the official map in the northeast quadrant and several other places. But the amount of public land or land that is on the official map as a percentage of that over 700 acres is less than 5%. And that's not enough for a town of our size if you look forward 50 years from now. And yes, unfortunately, and I'm one of them, I've never thought that the proposal for Lot 15 for a grocery store is particularly appropriate. When you look at things like, I think there was a calculation as to the amount of fill that's going in there in order to support that grocery store. I think it covers 5 acres to a depth of 5 feet. That, in my estimation, indicates that this is not an appropriate location for a commercial use of that type. And I think we ought to look elsewhere. If we want a grocery store that bad, I think there are other places in town that could potentially be rezoned to accommodate something that's a little different than what's been proposed. But I think in earnestness, we've got to look forward. And I don't think, despite the fact that there's Japrag's Park, the Bissonnet Fields, there are recreational areas that sit outside of our village district, but that 5% isn't near enough. And we really need to look towards the future, more so than perhaps we are. And this is an emotional issue, and I realize that everyone here, the select board as well, are interested in the best possible community that we can make, and we don't necessarily always agree about that, but I know that for everyone that's an earnest wish. I just think ahead, and that's all.
All right, thank you.
My name is Bob Thiefels, and I would urge you to go ahead with this and negotiate and work out the difficulties about the eminent domain and so on. So I urge you to go ahead and vote on that and not just close this down. I think we can negotiate these kind of issues if we have goodwill and a willingness to meet each other halfway. A lot has been said, both pro and con, and I've really tried to listen with an open mind about all that. But I do think it would be important to keep this process open. You're not committing yourself to eminent domain, as I understand it, but you're committing yourself to move ahead and consider the possibilities. I've attended many town meetings, and we've voted on trucks for the road, we've voted on fire trucks, we vote on our school issue. All of those raise our taxes, okay? We know that we need those. In a sense, Lot 15 is our Yosemite, okay? This is our town, all right? So I think we need to treat it as a Yosemite in some ways, okay? So I want you to go ahead and negotiate and think about it. And there is money, you know, there is money outside of taxpayer money that has been pledged that can be used in some way. I'm not sure how at this point, but there is money that has been pledged to purchase that property. So it doesn't all have to be purchased by taxpayer money, okay? So that's another thing to negotiate. That's all I want to say. Thank you.
Thank you. So we'll go with one more, if there is. And I appreciate everybody's respect and everybody's opinion. I do acknowledge there's probably some people who would like to express their opinion, but can be difficult. For some people, they love it. Some people, you know, it's a difficult way to do it. So again, we did get a lot of email. We got some phone calls. We read, or I do, Front Porch Forum. Again, I think that on this particular topic, the Select Board, I think, is well informed. We've gotten a lot of good information. I've learned a lot. I've, you know, got some different perspectives that I certainly wouldn't have thought about, except for going through this process in the last 3 or 4 months. So I definitely appreciate it. And I'll open it up to the Select Board. If anyone wants to make comments, you don't have to.
Is it possible to ask the comments to each selectman?
Yeah, we can just go right down the line. Tom, do you?
Sure, I'll go first.
Ayers, A.
Yeah, thanks. So I guess the hard part is where to start. This has been going on now for a very long time. Obviously, based on the number of emails we've gotten, and I want to apologize, I've got all the emails, but you can't reply to everyone who sends them to you. So we did receive them, and I read each and every one. And I can tell you that the temperature of the town is at least 3 to 4 to 1 opposed to taking this land via eminent domain. I think a lot of people realize just how significant that is. And it should only be used for necessary projects. In the words of our attorney, who we spoke with at least 3 times on this, he said it's the most significant action that any municipal body can take. So you darn well better have something in mind if you're going to go this route, because this is a serious deal. In mind, we talk about the best use of the land. In my opinion, based on what Rob has said and all the planning that went into it years ago, the best use of the land is a commercial site. And we talk about the boards and committees that have been working on this for decades. Yeah, right. Not just the Lot 15 committee, not just the Planning Commission recently, but years ago setting this up. I mean, we can't just say that word doesn't matter. There was a village visualization study that was done that said this is the best use of this lot with the services it provides. So I have absolutely no intention of voting to continue this process beyond tonight. This part of this process needs to end here. We can't just keep kicking the can down the road. Our job is to make decisions. And I think tonight is the decision we need to make is to end this eminent domain fiasco, or whoever called it that. It's time. This is it.
Thank you. Mary Lee?
So, first of all, I want to thank you all for coming. I'm really honored and grateful to be sitting up here as part of this community. Last week, we accepted Nathan Fry's offer to be part of the Village Steering Committee, and he made a comment that I wish I could quote word for word, but it was something like, this is what makes a community. This is what makes Hinesburg such a community, is that you all care so much. You don't all agree. We're like a big family. And we come and we have our discussions, and because we care, because each one of us cares so much about this community. So I'd like to step back in my thinking looking at this. For me, it's not an issue about Hannaford's. I think Hannaford's is a good company. I don't shop there much because it's just not on my way anywhere, but I have nothing against it. And it's not about whether we should have a park or whether it's Yosemite. For me, it really boils down to an issue of rights. Landowners have rights, and those are precious rights that some people have spoken to very eloquently about how much that means, that it's your own land, that you can do what you want with it. That's kind of something we expect. We even take it for granted, and when it's tread upon, we really get upset. But the municipal town also has rights as a municipality, and it's our job to protect those rights. And all the volunteers who have worked on the Planning Commission, on the DRB, they have rights. They've done a lot of work, and that should be protected. So how do those two conflicting things resolve each other? I'm not sure, but it does seem to me like eminent domain is huge. It's a huge step to take, and I really took into my heart the story that Gil Coates shared, and that's a really dramatic example, I think, of how eminent domain can feel to a landowner. I regret that in the creation of the town map, some of the landowners were not consulted. I hope that that can be remedied in some way eventually. I spent a lot of time today looking at the DRB's denial of the Hinesburg DRB's denial of the Hannaford application. I am quite concerned about the water. Water also has a right. It has a right to flow, and it has a right to give us what it wants to give us, which is healthy water. And there was a hydrogeologist, Steve Revelle, who spoke last April quite clearly about the value of Lot 15 as a place that was like a sponge that really collected the water and let it go. And Hannaford's plan for stormwater would have totally destroyed that. But the DRB recognized that, and that was one of the reasons that they denied the application. The DRB recognized that the town map was not followed, our official town map by Hannaford's. That was another reason that they denied the application. And the DRB recognized that traffic was not addressed adequately. That was another reason that the application was denied. This is in the court right now, and what the court will decide, I don't know, but I think with this huge, it's like stomping on a little bug somehow. I think this huge issue of taking the step of eminent domain, I think it's maybe it has been, these issues that we're worried about maybe have been taken care of by the DRB's very thoughtful and thorough examination of Hannaford's application and denial of it. So I think that's what I'm going to trust.
All right.
So I really embrace this whole process. Like I said to Phil tonight, this is one of these nights where a lot of people show up and we all really get to do the job that we all are engaged in, and it's not just us, but it's everybody in town to really speak up and to really hear to make sure decision makers who are put here by you do our jobs and make a decision, like what Tom was saying. And although, like Tom, he said, we read all of these comments that you make and these emails, and it's tough to stay up on top of it, but it's good. It's good work to really get a pulse of what's going on, because it's hard to make decisions without your feedback. And you've given it to us in droves. Unfortunately, it all came at the very end. We've been talking about this for a while, but such as it is, I still embrace it and would encourage it. There's a lot that goes into this, and I think the overall theme of this is we all are really passionate about it, whatever side we sit on, and we all really want what we feel is best for the town. I really love the fact that we can get together and we can sort of hash this out. I mean, this is perhaps unique in where we live here. There's so many things that you spoke really well to that we have to concern ourselves with, and stormwater and traffic are certainly big issues to deal with this application, which, if it could be different, I would embrace that too. But when we're talking tonight, we're talking about eminent domain, and we're talking about something that our attorney has really cautioned us about. It's tricky, it's unproven, it's potentially very costly, and without any guarantee of any result that we are looking to achieve. So moving forward in this fashion tonight with this decision, I'm not in favor of eminent domain for those reasons and more. But it would literally shift the cost in my mind of this project from how it's being funded now directly onto your shoulders as a taxpayer, and you would be paying for it. And yes, money would come in perhaps through other fashions, but if the money that we've talked about tonight, what is it, the $69,000 since 2013 is troublesome for you, my guess is you haven't seen anything yet. So I'm not in favor of moving forward on eminent domain this evening.
Did you want to say anything?
So I made this motion to begin with, really based on a lot of information that I read and heard over the last, since 2010. We certainly got a lot of information from the professionals representing the applicant. I also have been fortunate to have lived across from this lot for over 40 years and recognize that to a lot of people it's just a vacant lot. But really, also over this period of time, I've come to learn a lot about how water moves and the importance of different pieces of land for their ability to filter and absorb water. Sometimes they're designated as wetlands. That designation seems to come and go depending on who the professional is that's looking at it, what the current political climate is, both locally, statewide, and nationally. So I made this motion because I have witnessed that over the years, this land does absorb a lot of water. It has prevented flooding, and that it might not be designated a wetland, but it sure looks like it's functioning in that way. So I just want to read some of my thoughts so I don't ramble on too much. But what is the public value of Lot 15, which is really the basis for which we would be needing to use this eminent domain procedure? And while the 2009 official map did not designate a specific public facility for Lot 15, the information presented during the DRB review, beginning in 2010, revealed that indeed there were ecological values that would be severely impacted if development happened at the scale and size proposed by the applicant. The importance of Lot 15's designation on the official map and the need for some type of public facility was consistently identified by the Planning Commission in letters to the DRB during both review processes. In the first application, the DRB incorporated the Planning Commission's concerns, and the applicant modified their original proposals so that it did accommodate the functions that were to conform with the official map. Also, while the original application was being reviewed in 2011 and 2012, it was already recognized by state agencies and professionals that the Vermont 2002 stormwater regulations were not sufficient to protect water quality of Vermont streams, rivers, and lakes. The existing lot in its undeveloped state will not perceived to be providing public benefit, i.e., for some reason now it's not designated a wetland or worthy of protection, was in reality preventing flooding on Commerce Street and possibly Route 116, and protecting the water quality in Patrick Brook. It has been demonstrated that there is a lens of sandy soil on the parcel that is acting to absorb and filter the rainfall and runoff from surrounding properties, an area of approximately 6.5 square miles. Filling almost the entire 5-acre site with approximately 5 feet of fill to accommodate a sophisticated subsurface stormwater collection system, and the addition of acres of impervious surface will remove these existing absorption and filtering functions and further degrade Patrick Brook. Hinesburg can be proactive in addressing the impacts of climate change that has already resulted in more frequent and high volumes of precipitation by acquiring a portion of this parcel to mitigate these future events. Protecting this resource through the acquisition of a portion of Lot 15 will ensure that these functions can continue and that a more appropriately sized development of buildings and parking can be accommodated without impacting the water quality of Patrick Brook and the safety of our roads. Local government, the Select Board, Planning Commission, and DRB are responsible for drafting and implementation of regulations to use as tools to guide development. It is vital that these regulations be defended. The Select Board must support the DRB and recognize that if the town is to continue to attract motivated, intelligent volunteers to serve on these boards, it must be willing to take legal actions to uphold its decisions. These are often complicated decisions that can't be reduced to sound bites on social media. The board deliberates with legal counsel and is always aware of the financial consequences of its decisions. Developers, with the support of dozens of professional consultants, are eager to tell us they know what's best for the town. They spend large sums of money to convince the DRB and others that they are meeting the regulations or that certain regulations are not valid, and discount local decisions made by citizen boards. It is very difficult for citizen boards to obtain unbiased information. Professionals hired by the developer have a story to tell and are very knowledgeable of the rules and understand the power of scientific and legal language, and can cause a great deal of confusion. Because they operate in the private sector, they are not subject to the rules of transparency and accountability to taxpayers. Their decisions are made to benefit the corporation and its shareholders, which is their reason for existence, so it's okay. The Hinesburg DRB and staff are smart people and do their best to interpret what is being said by the applicant. Crafting good regulations and making fair decisions requires having ample information and time for evaluation. Citizen groups often play a critical role in presenting conflicting evidence and interpretation of data, rules, and procedures. In this situation, the DRB was fortunate that a group of citizens took a proactive role and hired professionals who could provide additional information and interpretation of data that forced the state and applicant to take a closer look at several issues related to stormwater and traffic, and then make changes that addressed those deficiencies. This is a dynamic process, and we learn from past experiences and try to make the process fair. But the town boards operate in a very different realm from the private sector. Every action taken by a public body is subject to the open meeting laws and needs to be balanced with the financial costs that come from litigation. The Select Board is responsible for upholding the regulations and decisions, but spending taxpayer dollars is always of utmost consideration. The Select Board is often faced with making decisions that are financially prudent for today's situation, but are not able to make the smart decisions for the longer-term benefits of the town. Once again, I remind my fellow board members that this is a procedural issue that I've presented, not a decision to acquire the land. It is the beginning of a process that can lead to acquisition by the town of a portion of the entire parcel. Moving forward with establishing a date for the condemnation hearing does not mean that the town will acquire the property. It does mean that the Select Board believes there is public value in the property and wants time to do its due diligence, get an appraisal and survey of a portion of the property it might acquire. The landowner must be fairly compensated, and voters would need to approve the expenditure of funds through a duly warned process. And that is why I think it's important, because I think we need to look to the future for many of the reasons that were suggested here. But I totally understand that from a practical matter, the Select Board is most concerned with what its effect is on taxpayers. And so from a practical matter, we understand there will be considerable litigation, and it's not very prudent to use this process. But it's the process that's laid out for us to try and take a look at what our future needs are.
Okay, thank you. And so I'm the only one who hasn't had a chance to talk, and since I've had to listen to everybody, I'll try to. Actually, I made some notes over the last couple of days, and pretty much every point that I, wish to, that I thought about had pretty much been said. But a couple of things. One is this decision for me, it's not personal. As a Select Board member, I really do try to take out my personal opinions, take them off the table, and I try to act what's best for the town. It's not always easy, but that's what I try to do. And in this particular situation, I think I've already said it a couple of times and held a couple people accountable. This isn't about Hannaford's, and if you notice, I tried not to even say Hannaford's, I said developer, because it's not about that. It's about a developer who's going through this process for us. There are more things happening with this applicant still to happen, but this is what's in front of the Select Board right now. A major concern for me, which is something I sort of picked up through this process, is that I do want to honor the town planning process. There's a lot of work that goes through it. It's a good thing for us. Obviously, you have to have some planning to make a town, a village, to make it worthwhile, to put sidewalks in, to do all the things that I I think the majority of the people have a vision of what our town should look like in 50 years. So this is an important process. And, you know, I think we have to do the best we can to honor the town planning process. There's been some discussion about environmental concerns. That also is very important. The original stormwater regs were done before Tropical Storm Irene, and they've been upgraded, but they're probably still a little behind the times. So I think that is important, and I think the town, if in fact our Patrick Brook or other things, there are issues in the future, the town could be held accountable for those, no matter how they actually got caused. So it's important that our town plan addresses that too. Now I'm going to say something that's my personal opinion. It's not the opinion of the select board. Now I'm a citizen of the town. But in this case, you know, a couple of times we've gotten input to say, well, let's just negotiate. We can come up with a solution. And so, you know, unfortunately, this developer has not been, and from my opinion and from my position, very good at negotiating. And I'm really unwilling. The select board has reached out to try to do this, to try to help the process, to make a better process. But it's unfortunate. And if you look at how the original application came in, it came in under secrecy and was dropped on this town like a bomb. And that's not how Hinesburg wants to operate. We want things to be up front. So I'm just sort of saying that as my own personal opinion. It's been said, it's very clear, eminent domain is serious business. I agree with that 100%. It would require, if we were to move forward, it would require the backing of really the entire select board and a good majority of the town to go through that type of a battle. And we know what those battles do in court, and we know, and we should expect that if we were to move in that direction, there would be a significant court issue that really hasn't been tested in this situation. So with that, in a way, it's really less about, you know, what I feel might be right or wrong. It's doing what's best for the town. And so with that said, I cannot support moving this forward. I want it to be done as far as this part of the DRB decision. So I would vote no against this motion. And one last thing. So even though if we do, in fact, if it ends up being vote no, that does not take the town map off the table. It doesn't go away. If another development came through and was looking at lot 15, the town map stays in place. It doesn't negate the town map. It just, in this case, basically very simple, saying the select board has decided not to move forward on that issue. Are we good? So.
Are we voting?
Did you have?
I had a question. This is your meeting, not our meeting, but I call the question then.
Yeah, okay, fair enough. No, I think we're ready anyways, right? Any more discussion? So the motion's on the table. Valerie, do you want to repeat that motion? I'm just joking. We have it written down. But basically, the motion is to move forward with the next step.
The condemnation hearing for October.
Right, scheduling a condemnation hearing. There'd be a lot of steps in between that, before that hearing.
It sets in motion a process that would allow for an appraisal, a survey, other information that could be brought forward.
Okay. So that's the motion, and it was seconded. So all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay? Nay. So the motion didn't pass. And I wish to thank everyone for coming. Thank you for helping us get through this very difficult issue. Yeah, stay involved. Do not leave. We're going to talk about the budget next.
That's what you're really here for.
But if you are going to leave and you want to continue your conversation, you have to take it outside so we can keep going with the meeting. Thank you. So the next item on the agenda is question and answer session for residents regarding the proposed municipal budget and any discussion we might have.
Do we want to just do a quick little summary of?
Yeah, I think,
Yeah.
yep. And is that something you want to?
Yeah,
Go
I
ahead.
can certainly
So
do that.
we'll have Renee give a quick summary of the highlights.
All right. It's, all of the information is in the online meeting packet too, but I'll just do a quick summary of my memo. The proposed FY20 municipal budget is $3,962,539, which is an increase in expenditures of $107,499, or at 2.79% over the current year's budget, FY19. The proposed budget is less than the projected FY20 local and state governmental inflationary rate of 2.9%, so we stayed within that range. And the bulk of the proposed increases, very similar to previous years, are due to transfers to the capital improvement program, and increased health insurance costs and salary and wage increases for staff. So the capital improvement program is the mechanism through which capital items are purchased. Heavy equipment, facilities, infrastructure, projects, all of those are funded through our capital improvement plan. In FY20, the Select Board talked about this, and they're making a stronger commitment to maintain the buildings and infrastructure that we currently own, and beginning to transition of saving toward vehicle and equipment replacement as interest rates are beginning to climb. The increased cost for health insurance is a result of employee mix changes during the current fiscal year, as well as an increase in premiums. So those are really the big cost drivers in this year's budget. If you look on the budget memo, it calls out specific things, which including the things I mentioned. And then there's also, if you're looking for a visual, there's a visual graph of how that's distributed. That entire $3,962,539 budget is distributed across departments. So what this means for the average taxpayer, it's hard to predict what the grand list is actually going to be at that point. So we base the tax rate on the grand list. And so right now, our preliminary estimates are the FY20 tax rate would be 0.5334, which is just over 2.5 cents off the current year's budget. So what that means for taxpayers, if they own a $200,000 home, that's an increase of just over $50 from what they're currently paying. A $300,000 home is $75.60 increase over what you're currently paying in this year. And a $400,000 home is a $100.80 increase annually over what you're currently paying. So that's a brief summary. Anyone have questions? We don't even have a live audience tonight to text me with questions.
Yes.
All right.
Maybe you have to use the microphone only so that the broadcast can hear you. Yeah, and your name too would be good.
Nancy Dunlap, can you hear me? Okay. I think it's Article 7.
Oh, for the warning?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah.
No, it must not be 7 then, because I don't have it
Are
in front
you-
of me.
are
Has
you-
to do with the
Intersection?
intersection. Thank
Okay,
you.
yep.
Can you tell me,
Yep.
us, about it a little bit more?
Okay. I'm happy to talk about it, and then if any of the board members want to add or correct me in anything. So for a number of years, there's been discussion at trying to improve traffic, and the town has been given at least one traffic study, if not more. And they've highlighted 2 items that would improve traffic flow or reduce traffic time through the town. Probably the number 1 is the CVU intersection, which is a 4-way intersection light, to add turning lanes, so people can turn with the lights. So that's all state road. So it's been in the state's hands. It's been approved. They've been talking about it for several years. It looks like this year they're going to start it and then hopefully finish it next year. So the process has started. So that is one thing, probably the number 1 thing that we've been informed that would help traffic flow. This, no cost to us. Well, state cost, but right, no direct dollars out of the town. The next item is improving the intersection Lampman-Charlotte Road 116, so that it's now a 3-phase light. You do 116, then Lampman's, then Charlotte, and it could turn into a 2-phase light, 116, and Lampman's and Charlotte at the same time. But the state didn't want to do that because the intersection, the exit out of Lampman's and the sidewalk, it's a real danger. So to be able to change the phasing of that light, the sidewalk would need to be moved basically more toward 116 and reconfigured so that people exiting the Lampman's will be able to see sidewalk people can see Lampman's better. And then if we did that, the state said that they would then rephase the light, and that should reduce a small amount, but reduce traffic, holdups within town. And so this amount of money, we've been told the estimate, it's gone up, but at $50,000, the town would be responsible for reconfiguring that, and then the state would redo the light. And I think that it's a significant amount of money. And from my opinion, for a pretty small benefit. And so I think the select board said, that's a lot of money to say we definitely want to do this. And so we said, well, maybe we'll ask the taxpayers if they're willing to do that. Another piece of it is the developer to be named Hannaford. I was going to say something, not to be named, but Hannaford's, it is a condition on their permit.
Yes, it was.
And so if they were to be approved automatically right now and everything was to be moved forward and they agreed to everything and, all the legal issues were solved, they would be on the hook to do this work.
Yeah.
So I think the select board's saying, realistically, we could wait, but we've been waiting years. And so we hear a lot about traffic. And so we're sort of saying to taxpayers, if you want to do something, here's something you can do. I don't think the select board feels like we want to spend this money without the taxpayers really understanding it and making that decision.
Well, instead of just putting it in
Right.
the budget somewhere else, just warning it as a separate article, there's also the potential that you could be making right turn on reds, which currently you can't. So
Right.
that's another, it's the phasing and also
Right.
the opportunity to do right turn on red.
There is another, St. Jude is set up the same way, so that you stop way far back to pull out. So it's another one.
Yeah.
But
So that's
you
why,
don't have the traffic.
that's why it's a separate warrant item.
Okay. Well, I appreciate it being separate.
And I think one other point to make is what the memo that or the summary that I provided does not include that extra 50,000. So that's why it's a separate warrant item. And so that would be an increase of 50,000 over the budget that the select board has proposed currently.
But maybe you can say what amount of money raises $50,000.
So that would be approximately a penny on the tax rate, so it'd be another penny to the tax rate. So I think the estimate would be 0.5414 rather than the 0.53, so another penny.
So if we had a grocery store, Lakeland's wouldn't be there anyways, so it would become a moot point.
You know, that's why it is complicated. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, the chicken or the egg. Okay, thank you.
All right, good question. Any other comments?
I'll just say to the audience, if there's any questions prior to town meeting, it would be great to reach out to either the select board or Renee or Joy for clarification, because some of the more difficult, challenging questions at town meeting, we're just not going to have the answers to.
Yeah.
Some of them have been a little odd in recent years, so if you have any challenging questions or even simple questions, reach out ahead of time. Please.
Good question, yeah.
Right. Yeah, so this will be the last select board meeting prior to town meeting, so, right?
All right, I think that's it for that item. And the next item is, I think Colleen from the CVSD budget, from the board, has in the past given us a little update on what we might expect for the school budget, for the whole district budget, all in one shot. I guess this is the second year of a complete district budget. So we offered to give a few minutes just to inform Hinesburg about it. It's on here. We had it in our packet.
No, she just brought it tonight. She's gonna have it up on the screen, I think. She just emailed it to me. I could email it to all of you guys though right now.
So we don't have that, is that what you're saying?
No, she just
That's why I'm not
sent
finding
it.
it.
So let me,
That would be the reason.
I can forward it. You already received it.
Oh, yeah, I did, yeah.
So check your emails, then you might be able to have it on your screen. I just forwarded you the email.
You're sending it to us?
I emailed it to you. She just, so no, I just forwarded her email.
Maybe I can just plug my computer right in there. Would that be helpful, if it comes up?
Joy, I could email it to you, and then maybe you can pull it up in your email. Here,
I got
Colleen,
it.
Oh,
Oops.
you got it?
Yeah.
You forwarding it to her?
No, I got it right here.
Did you get it?
She has it.
Oh, she doesn't have it. I wouldn't have the
It's
adapter.
not projecting.
Do you have the adapter that will go into that?
I have an adapter.
From
with
your
me, too.
Apple to a VGA? Or, yeah.
It's just odd, I don't know what your quirky little systems are. Oh, you want to do it on?
Okay, so that's it.
Yeah.
We put it in, okay, so now we grab it. Okay, so you want to take this check?
I just don't know why it's not.
I don't either. I think you need to take this, which is, I mean, it's being televised, but it's not live anyway, so we may not need to have it on the. Well, that's good. I don't know what we just, maybe we talked to it, but not.
Okay.
It was asleep.
Yeah.
And then the little ice cream. Yeah, and we can go through this relatively quickly. Do you want me to use a mic?
You can sit right there if you want.
Okay.
Oh, wait a minute, your time's up.
And Joy, I'll let you drive.
That's fine.
Okay, so with the 12-member district board, but thank you. Before we get started, I just want to express my appreciation for this excellent meeting that you just concluded with. You didn't conclude the meeting, but the hearing portion of it, you know, the opportunity for public comment prior to your select board vote. I just thought it was a very informative and productive session, and it showed me how much thought and time the select board has put into the issues and thinking about, you know, the process. And I just want to, as a fellow board member who understands how challenging it can be, I just want to say thank you for that. And I also want to acknowledge Andrea's time on the select board and just say from the community, thank you so much for all that you've done and over the years. And when my husband and I first moved to Hinesburg about 30 years ago, there were no sidewalks, or, you know, maybe about 12 feet of sidewalks. So, and, you know, I know that was a big charge of yours at one point.
It's important because I think Colleen and I dropped out first. She's been on the school board as long as I've been on the select board. So I'm bailing before you do, Colleen.
Yeah, so I appreciate all that you've done, so thank you. I'm sure it's bittersweet. So I just wanted to acknowledge this moment in time. So I just used up some time, but I'll go through this quickly. But the merged district is working well. This is our third year, believe it or not. You know, we're going into our third year. And it's a 12-member board, 5 towns. And the consolidated system is working well. Our goal is to allow for sharing across all of the districts, across all of the towns in the schools. It's one district. And so if there's a downsizing that needs to happen in one community in a school, and things are increasing in another school, we have the opportunity to shift resources around to accommodate the entire system. So we are finding, and we're learning a lot, but we're finding that a larger system is more efficient and more effective, and we're all very hopeful about it. So it's close to 4,000 students. If you start adding in your elementary kids, your pre-K kids, we employ over 400 teachers, and we have about the same number of staff members. So overall, we're really close to somewhere between 800 and 900 employees in the district. You can keep going. That's kind of an agenda. And mission, I just want to mention the mission. This drives decision-making, and it's pretty, and learn, think, live, contribute, pursue excellence. When there are decisions that are being made, the district, professionals in the district, board members, staff, we always go back to the mission, and are these decisions serving the mission? So it's actually something that we use on a regular basis, and it was something that took a couple of years to work through to develop it. And so far it's working, but it helps drive our decisions. Thank you. And thank you to everyone who's giving the input. That's the thank you slide. Well, points of pride, I don't want to read through it, and there's a second slide on points of pride. When you have more time, you can go back through and read some of these, but we're quite proud of our moments of excellence. And you can go on that to graduation rate. I think for CVU, we have a lot of kids that go through that system, very high graduation rate, and we're kind of above the state average in the number of kids that go on to 4-year post-secondary education. Enrollment trends, What's important about this slide is that Hinesburg's very stable. This is the K-8 system. It's been very stable over time. We're anticipating a little bit of a dip next year, but you know, that could turn on a dime with a couple families moving to town.
It's really just
Thank
a
you,
couple
Joy.
percentage, like you say, it pretty much is stable.
Yeah.
But we would expect if we're able to actually build out a little bit more, even though less students per household now, you know, potentially the town may add a good amount of households.
Yeah,
So-
and what's nice about the consolidated system is if there's some kind of squeeze that starts happening in our local school, we have this fluid system where if a family wants to, if they're like living on a border or parents drive by another school in another district, there's the opportunity to shift kids around across town borders without incurring additional expense to the community. So that flexibility will help us over time.
As seamless as we'll just enroll here instead of there?
Yes,
It's that
if
seamless.
there's room.
Sure,
So
sure.
for example, if Williston right now has very large kindergarten classroom sizes, and so there would be, that might be a place where a kid might not be able to go. But if there's room in the classrooms, and we'll get to a slide that's class sizes later.
There's no paperwork, there's no
Well, there's,
permission,
you know, we
I
got to
mean,
keep track of
no,
our kids, but
I mean,
yeah.
But it's no sort of hearing process or anything, it's just,
No,
just
you
sort of make it
bring
happen.
it to the superintendent and and there's a central office process for doing that.
Yeah, that's good.
And in the past, if we had a family that, and we've had many requests over the years, if we had a family that wanted, for one reason or another, and families have all sorts of reasons, to go to another school in another town, then the towns would have to pay that tuition. And so, you know, Hinesburg, we almost unanimously always said no unless a family, you know, was towards the end of a school year and it made sense to keep kids in the local community. But, and, you know, other boards did the same. But now we can move, we allow people to move if they want. We're not finding that there's a lot of ask for it. But yeah.
When it comes up, it sounds like it's a lot easier.
Oh, yeah,
that's
yeah,
great.
it's really easy. And so, you know, for example, if you think about building out over the future, you know, at one point, there was consideration of a second school in this community for middle school because the projections were numbers going way up. And now if we ever started seeing those numbers again, well, we have 6 school buildings in our district that we can move kids around. And of course, at this point, there's no plans to change anything. Just, you know, make sure people don't get nervous about that. But so yeah, there's a flexibility, a larger system. There's a lot more flexibility. Thank you, Joy. Next one. This is just another slide of enrollment. You can look at that another point. You can see where it is across. I think the point across the bottom row is what to pay attention to. 2013, 2014 to projection next year, it's fairly stable, 3,900, 3,800. When you hear conversation from the state level about declining enrollments in the schools, that's happening in the state. It's not happening in our communities. We had a high of close to 120,000 students in the kindergarten through grade 12 students in the state a number of years ago, and it's down to about 73,000. And so that's why you hear this continuous conversation out of Montpelier. We need to keep a check on education spending, and you know, part of the incentive for merging came out of some of those discussions. But what we're finding within our own district is that enrollment is fairly stable. Thank you, Joy. Class sizes, we follow education quality standards set by the state. Those are our guidelines, and that will help us decide whether or not we need to add teachers or maybe move teachers around. But we're within that. This is just a slide on assessment results. Take a look at it when you have a lot more time. If you look at the green bar, essentially, compared to the blue bar, green bar, Hinesburg, blue is the state, and our students are performing quite well compared to the state averages on these assessments, particular set of assessments, grade 3.
Household, he loves taking those tests.
Well, that's great.
I say sarcastically.
Oh, I thought maybe he was someone who likes to take tests.
No, but he does appreciate the snacks that go with them.
Oh, yeah.
But I do know about this. Like, it's good to see this result here, that it is high, but I do hear about when
Yeah.
they're going on pretty vocally.
Yeah. And what's nice about this particular set of assessments, it's just kind of a point of information. They adapt to the students. So depending on if a student is getting right answers or wrong answers, the assessment will adapt and will cut the time short if it's, they're satisfied with the score, the algorithms, internal algorithms. So it's not as painful as what we did when we were kids. Maybe.
Maybe. Depends on the student.
Yeah, some of them just say.
Number 2 pencil, that's all that matters.
Yeah, and these are similar results for CBU.
Is it still called NECAM? The test?
SBAC, Smarter Balanced Assessment Consortium.
NECAP was an unfortunate acronym.
Yeah, and that's a different set. And the big thing that you'll be hearing in the state, and we're not presenting on it tonight, but performance-based learning and personal learning plans, proficiency-based assessments. So there's a big push within the district and within the state to really have authentic assessments and authentic instructional experiences. And I know the town has had kids involved with a number of different activities, and for kids to experience real activities and be able to be assessed for contributing to their community, it's a great thing. We're figuring that out. Joy, next one. So budget goals, you'll see another slide later that this is a year-round process. So the board meets May, June timeframe, and we do have a process of reflecting on what we hear throughout town meeting and shortly after and through the end of the year. And during our retreat, we start setting our goals for the next year. And so we have goals established by the time we start the budget season. And the way that we've set up our board is to have a few committees so that we have a finance committee. They do finance and budget and facilities. And it allows a few members of the board to meet more frequently and do a deep dive into budget and so forth. And so our budget goals will set expectations for learning opportunities for professionals. And so we've got a number of different key initiatives going on. We want to continue to support that. And we have, a real interest in trying to continue to advance goals of the community, but at the same time take advantage of efficiencies in our, where we can to continue to try to bring to the community a budget that people will support. And so in this slide, it's a cycle, and it essentially is a repeat with a lot more words of what I just said. Is we start the budget process early, and we have a cycle that's ongoing. Thank you, Joy. Our proposed budget, this is the one slide that everyone wants to see, of course. The change from year to year is so we've got the proposed budget, and the change on the budget is about 2.7% at this point. We expect that number to go down, but it all depends on what the state does. And our cost per equalized pupil is at 2%. So these are within the targets that the governor has set. And you can...
And that's for the total of, like, 3,000.
Yeah, that's fine. You can go on this one.
The almost 3,900 students.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yep. Close to 900 employees and their educational program. And so we break it out to cost per student, and that's the equalized pupil. And an equalized pupil, there's a weighting system, so a secondary student is a little more.
Algorithm.
Yeah.
I've looked at before and tried to make sense of. Do you,
Yeah, so, I mean,
how do you explain it?
Let's
The-
not try to explain it.
Yeah.
Well, I can do it simply.
Go ahead.
If you have, yeah, you can't do it simply, can you? You know, there's a concept.
Weighted, yeah.
It's weighted, so secondary student is bigger, takes up more space, and so costs more to house
More
the person.
resources, yeah,
That's not
Yeah.
the truth.
I know.
I'm making that up.
For the purpose of the.
Our
And the special education piece. And,
special
yeah,
education,
they're all factored
transportation,
in.
English language learners,
Yeah,
and there's
it's all
a
factored in.
interest from board members across the state to relook at the weighting formulas in the state, just to ensure that there's fairness in the system, depending on what community.
How the state decides how much you're going to get of the pie.
Well, and that's a different piece, is, you know, so when you hear about conversations about enhancing early education, and a lot of that used to come from a different budget, and there's been a lot of interest in using the education fund at the state level in different ways, expanding the scope without necessarily adding more dollars to it. And so, at the state level, there are a lot of discussions that our administrators and board members are involved in trying to ensure that the education fund doesn't get rated inappropriately. Of course, you know, the birth to through higher ed scope is extremely important, but we want to make sure that what was intended for P12, if the scope expands, that the funding should expand as well. So that you'll hear political discussions about that over time. But the change year to year, we just wanted to highlight a few of the factors: salaries and benefits, that's contractual agreements, special ed services, a lot of that is reimbursed from the state or federal funding, operations and maintenance. Our consolidated savings, we're seeing about $300,000 through consolidation. And, some places will see that number a lot larger, but we had been working towards working collaboratively prior to the vote to consolidate. So for us, that's on target of where we said we wanted to be.
Because it's a process that takes, it isn't all going to happen that first year. It takes time to
It takes
get these savings.
Yeah, it takes time, and we had already consolidated everything that we possibly could without actually having the governance system change. So other districts in the state who didn't, we had been working towards consolidation 10, 15 years before we actually had the study committee that led to the vote in the last time, but we had been consolidating business services, negotiations, our contracts were all consolidated, transportation, fiscal services. So we're, with a $79 million budget, it may not seem like a lot, but it's because we had made a lot of progress before. So the consolidation will help us with how we use our resources, and what will probably be most apparent for community members might be the way that facilities are managed and operations around the facilities. It's much easier to share knowledge and equipment and people, and if you're going to do work on a roof, why don't you put something out to bid to have work done on 5 roofs? So that's where we're going to see savings, but it won't necessarily be a direct apples to apples, because if we're bidding on 5 roofs, you're not necessarily going to see that difference of what it would have cost for 1 roof. But okay, thanks, Joy. Tax calculations, everyone's interested in that. I think what's important is just emphasizing where we are now is an expectation of 2.7% increase with only 2% increase in our equalized pupil. District spending, equalized homestead rate, that's the equalized is to adjust for a common level of appraisal. And we'll see a slide after this that shows the different appraisals across the district, the different towns. But our adjusted equalized tax rate is 145.
And we're getting now 6-cent incentive. That'll go down over time.
Right, 2 cents a year. So next year, you'll see 4-cent reduction. Thank you, Joy. And then the tax implications, if you look at the second column, the first column are the towns listed. The common level of appraisal, where Hinesburg is, 98.8%. That's good. You know, it's based on sales in the community. And so our Williston, with them at 94.7, they're appealing that. They're challenging that. They want that to be a higher number. But that's about where we are.
Is that, they're challenging it to the state?
Yeah, the powers that be.
Yeah.
Yep, yep. Tax commission, I'm not sure, I'm not exactly whose office that goes through. I should know that, but I don't. So in the third column, estimated homestead rate with CLA applied, you can see that Hinesburg's at 145, and that's within the range of everybody else. I mean, essentially, we're all paying the same rate. The tax burden is the same across every town.
Based on the homestead
Based on the
value.
seal,
So this
yeah.
is a way to just adjust those if the towns, they can't keep up with it every year, so there's a slight adjustment.
Yep. And there's a window when it gets below a certain point, as you know, you have to go out and redo it. Any questions on the tax implications or slides?
So now it doesn't really matter whether Hinesburg has more students at CVU than Williston.
Right, they're all our kids.
They're all our kids, so there's no, so if we have a lot of kids and Charlotte doesn't have any, it's not going to affect our rate.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Right, and that's, and what's really helpful about that is, let's just think of the K-8 system, and Charlotte saw their numbers going down, and let's say they had teachers that were on the high end of the salary scale, and if you compared, and let's say Hinesburg had numbers, enrollment going up, and had a lot of teachers on the lower end of the salary scale, in the old system, Charlotte would be having to cut teachers or raise taxes seriously to provide the same staffing for the kids. And so in this system, it equalizes, contracts are negotiated for everybody. So when we're looking at equity across all of the schools, and equity is one of our, we've got a big focus on that. What does equity mean? Lots of ways to look at equity. So when we're looking at trying to have equity across all the schools, we might do a staffing count. And I'm being very simplistic here, but let's say the staffing counts would be based on number of kids enrolled. So there'd be a ratio of, X teachers per X student, and it's the same everywhere, and we're not doing the total budget per school. So we're not comparing one school's budget to another school's budget, because in the system, it doesn't make sense. It gives us more flexibility in the system. We can move people around or offer the opportunity for people to move if they want. And so it doesn't matter where people are in the salary scale. It's not going to have an impact on the local budget. It's kind of simplifying it. But.
Okay.
Next, please. And so the articles that you're going to see, one is related to the budget and the language. It's required by the state, whatever language you're seeing, that's what it's going to be. And the first article is raising close to $79 million, $78,901,170, and that would increase, that would cover the 2.7% expenditure increases. Next slide, please. This one, we want to allocate our fund balance in 3 different ways. $500,000 apply to revenue, and assign $1 million to the district's construction fund. It's going into a separate account or a separate category, and then assign remaining balance 1829698 as revenue for future budgets. So that's like our fund balance.
We
That's
continue the fund balance.
Yep, and we get our recommendations from professionals about where to keep a fund balance. But I think you may be familiar with having $500,000 to offset the taxes for the next year. That's a familiar article that we would have when it was local. And occasionally in Hinesburg, we had the $1 million set aside for construction. That wasn't necessarily habit in other communities, and now we're trying to move in that direction across the district.
Are those earmarked for anything? I mean, there's probably projects on the.
Yes.
But are they
Yeah.
more specific projects?
Yes, so you can go online and you'll see a spreadsheet that has a lot of tiny, tiny font. And so we're working on a 5-year project. We have, various issues that are identified. So each of the local schools brings their issues to the table, and there's a centralizing process. And we've got someone who can oversee a lot of this work if there are going to be projects. So yes, we're working 5-year capital plans. Joy? Buses, we're 5 to 6 new buses each year. And so you're familiar with seeing buses, and that's our bus fleet to keep everything moving.
62, that's a lot of buses.
Yes, a lot of buses. We
It'd be
added.
nice if they picked up other people besides students, but that's another topic.
Yeah, that's
It'd be nice if the buses were full.
That's what I was thinking.
And they had bike racks.
I mean, buses, but okay, let's move on.
I'll bring that forward. I like the bike rack ideas. That's a good one. I don't know if they do that on school buses.
They could.
Yeah. And that's it. And then the last slide is about the tax relief for households. So, and that's it.
Okay.
So, I took too much time, I'm sure, but.
We asked you questions.
Yeah, are there any other specific questions? Thank you. Yeah, this is very
Thank you for the
helpful.
opportunity.
Clearly, I mean, it just feels like the whole process, and it's $79 million worth of process, seems, very well thought. It's very thoughtful. It's, it just seems like it's in total control. So, and I know when I mentioned Hinesburg to younger families with younger kids nowadays, everybody speaks very highly of our schools, whether it's CVU or Hinesburg and the other schools. So we're very fortunate to have them here.
Yeah,
No question about it.
I get chills when I hear board members from other districts talk about Hinesburg School and how much they love that school.
Mm-hmm.
It's cheerful, it's bright, we've taken it a long way in this community, and now to have the consolidation and future opportunities,
Yeah.
there are a lot of good things happening.
Yep.
Have to be vigilant, have to keep
Okay.
doing it, though.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very
All
much,
right.
appreciate the time.
All right. Town meeting roles and responsibilities. I guess I was reminded today, everybody here, we were all on the board last year, right? And so this is all new, it's nothing new here. We have our budget assignments, so, be prepared for those difficult decisions, those difficult questions that we've never heard before. I will do the town report, probably similar to last year, some pictures and just some highlights of what's in the town report. And I think I committed to helping present the warned item. And I'll probably have a slide on that, maybe.
The article 9.
The Article 9, yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense to do that, since people are going to have questions about it anyway. Yeah.
Anything else as far as logistics? I think it should be similar.
Yeah, I think it worked well last year, so that same format, everybody,
Got the room reserved?
I do.
Right.
Don't assume,
Good
Got
call.
that down. Oh, I knew there was something I forgot.
Okay.
So, and if anyone, we do have some tables that are reserved for out in the area when you first walk in, so I believe one group is gonna do the food offerings that they did last
Excellent.
year. And so if anyone else, you just need to let me know so we make sure we have enough tables, but I did reserve a set number of tables from CVU, so. That's,
Good. Yeah, and I think maybe as it gets closer, Renee and I will be communicating a little bit. If there's some notes, we can just send them out via email,
Right.
just a reminder, do this or do that or whatever. So,
and again, for the large crowd that's gonna watch this tomorrow, if you guys have any questions,
Yes.
please let us know ahead of time. If there's any clarification you need on the budget, we would be happy to provide that and prepare that for town meeting, so.
right, and there's one typo out there, so everyone should look diligently for it. And we may give a prize if you find it.
If you find any typos in the town report, it was just a test.
Right, and if you bring it up at town meeting, it doesn't count. It's too late. Yeah,
I think
good,
That's it.
all right. Next item on the agenda is, as Aaron thought, we should have done this first today, then last. Consider approving liquor licenses. So we have to convene.
don't have any in here. Yeah. They're not in here, but they're here. Okay.
So,
I just got them from Missy today.
All right.
and when we could say who they
I'll
are.
make a motion that we convene as the Board of Liquor Control.
Okay, seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye? Aye, aye, aye. Okay, so the first would be first-class licenses, and maybe you could tell us who they are?
So for first class, we have Travia's Restaurant and, this is second class, Good Times Cafe and Papa Nick's. Good Times has two, so you'll have an outdoor one as well as the indoor. And that is it for the first
First
classes
class,
right now.
okay, those three.
Yep.
I'll make a motion to approve those first-class liquor licenses for.
Is there a second? We've got Frank here. Okay, no issues at all? Good, so all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, so that's approved.
Probably have to sign those this evening.
Yes, you will have to sign those, I'll put those down.
And as far as the second-class liquor licenses, applications are from 116 Wine and Spirits, KB Enterprises, which is Lampman's, the Hinesburg Jolly, and Kenny Drugs.
Okay. All right, Frank, no issues there? All right, all those in favor say aye.
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 So I'll just need your signatures at the end.
I'll make a motion to adjourn as the Board of Liquor Control.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor say aye. Aye. All right. Consider appointing the police chief search committee. How do we want to move forward with that? I think we have some,
Yeah, so I can take that if you'd like.
yep, please.
You're okay? So, as you know, Chief Koss announced back in November that he was going to retire. Thank you for your years of service. This was no surprise. You told us, it was like it was the worst kept secret, right? You told us for years that you were going to do this, and you finally followed through. So now it's up to us to find a replacement. And rather than just the select board sit here and vet applications and do all the work, we're going to break off into a little subcommittee, I propose. And Marilee and I, with Renee, will head this committee up for the purpose of that vetting process of putting the announcement out there, putting the word out there to the community, to the world, and and bringing in applications and sorting through them with conversation ahead of time about what we're looking for, which we would include the select board in updates, and certainly our committees are going to be, our meetings are, they're open meetings. We may have discussion that would be more sensitive at times, which we might have some executive type discussion, but generally speaking, the process is to sort of weed through however many we're going to get, whatever we're going to get, and to have this committee bring forth a person or people that the committee thinks is worth the select board and the town administrator's office worthy of review for the possibility of being hired. So that's the purpose of this committee. So Marilee and I reached out to 5 people, including the 3 of us, so that would be 8 people. That would be myself, Marilee, Renee, Terry Francis, Ray Nails, Don Francis, no relation, Jen McEwen, and John Treffry. And with those 8 names, I would make a motion to appoint those 8 people to the Hinesburg Police Chief Search Committee for the purpose of vetting applications and bringing forth a name or names for the Select Board and Town Administrator's Office to consider for the job.
Second it. Okay, discussion?
Absolutely,
Sure.
please.
Okay, I agree with me not being on this committee. However, you need somebody with law enforcement to be on this committee. Because when you're talking to people and like that, and hi there. What my suggestion is maybe you reach out to another department and maybe bring in a police chief or a captain or a lieutenant or somebody from another department to go ahead and be part of this committee. It's what Richmond did. Richmond is down to 2 candidates. I believe they brought in the South Burlington chief of police. So it's just a suggestion that you need somebody with some kind of law enforcement. I intend to go to all the meetings. I also understand the executive sessions where you're going to be talking to people and things that would possibly be inappropriate for me to hear. But like I said, I would suggest that you reach out to another department to see if you could find a member that could be on this. Okay.
That's good advice. I didn't have one for this evening, but I could certainly do that. We wouldn't be appointing them this evening, but we could certainly bring them in at some point, and I'd be open to suggestions. Maybe you have one.
I don't have a suggestion for
I know.
a particular person, but I do feel that the candidates that you've brought forward have a range of experiences, and that it's possible to bring in even Frank as an advisor on the committee and in the process. But, you know, it does feel like with the candidates that you've brought forward, there is a depth of experience in that.
Yeah, I agree.
And as you need to, you may.
Yeah, and that is not to be overlooked, that Frank you are going to be part of this process. I'll note too, and Marilee noted it just a moment ago, that Ray Nails, I'm proposing to be part of the committee, and he, although isn't currently, has been active police officer. So it's at least that experience maybe that you're speaking to. He's not active, but he is, or was, a police officer locally.
Though, and he's still working in law enforcement.
Yeah.
I have a possible suggestion of a name, but maybe we could talk later.
Sure.
I think that would make more sense.
Sure.
Okay.
I can think of a couple.
Yeah, I mean, I think establishing a committee to get moving forward, it's fine to, so for a suggestion, now that I see all the names, I feel pretty confident. It looks great. One of my thoughts beforehand was we want to definitely make sure we have some HR guidance through this process. I think you have some here, but, there may be a point where you might ask you know, hey, let's just get this double checked or whatever. In the same way, you could ask the chief or someone else if there's a technical question concerning, you know, law enforcement, or can this work? Is there an issue here?
I would anticipate that.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And
Sure.
then the other piece would be, you know, I think you have Terry Francis, who's got obviously fire experience, but I think it'd be important to at least bring in our own fire department and make sure, you know, we understand what they would be looking for and incorporate that into the search too, fire and the rescue piece. And, you know, for me, as we move forward and look into the future, you know, speaking for myself, what I don't want is a fire department, a police department, and a rescue department. I think they're all, you know, one and should be acting as one and solving all of those three things. Obviously, they're specialized, but they're constantly assisting each other, so.
Which is our
this looks
first
good.
note of our note for our
Great.
committee right here.
Yeah.
Phil's got the first one.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
So I think it looks good. Any other comments? So I guess we could make a motion to get you started.
So I
I'd make
a motion.
You made it?
Yep,
And
Mary
with
Lee
those
seconded.
names
Yep.
to establish a committee?
Yep.
All right. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, so that motion passed. Great. Let us know whatever help you need and throughout this process. Just to clarify, so our town administrator is, the town folks, the town employees are direct reports to the town administrator, but hiring department heads ends up being a select board.
In conjunction.
Yeah, in conjunction. So obviously, we'll work together. If this was an officer in the department, the process would be more on the town administrator and not a select board issue necessarily, specifically, responsibility. Okay, you good? All right, next item is town administrator report. Have you done anything this week?
No, just the typical, normal, sitting around, waiting for something to happen in here. What's that? Yes. So, I guess there's a couple things. We did started the first tour of the wastewater plant.
That's
So we've identified 3 plants that we want to start with to look at. The first one we toured last week was the South Burlington plant. So it gave the folks that are on this committee an opportunity to not only see what they've seen on paper, but to actually see that system in operation and be able to talk to the operators and ask questions and really understand what that really looks like. So that, I think, everybody felt like that was a helpful process. What's that?
Who went on the trip?
Phil did, I did, Joy did, Peter Erb, let's see, who else was there?
John.
John, Alexander, yep,
Yeah.
yep,
And Wayne was there with
Right.
us.
It's impressive.
And if you're interested in the difference between a 5-micron or 10-micron disc filter system, just ask me. I'll just
we've
tell
got
you.
this. So our next
What do you have
scheduled,
at your house?
our next scheduled one is supposed to be Wednesday to Waterbury. However, the weather isn't cooperating
Yeah.
with us, so we may have to reschedule. And after that, there's another one scheduled for Queechee later on in the month.
And with these 3 visits, we'll see similar equipment to, you know, what's being proposed, what are some of the options. So,
Each is a representative of a different option.
of pieces. So we saw
yeah.
several of the options that we're looking at South Burlington. We saw the ultraviolet versus the, you know, which we have chlorine now for.
Yeah.
And we saw the disc filter system and some clarifying, you know, different ways, completely different from a lagoon system, basically.
Yeah. So, so that was that with the wastewater facility tours. We've also continued our interviews for highway maintainers, so we had another one yet
Good.
today. We had
Yeah.
some last week.
Good.
So we're moving through that process. What's that?
hopeful?
Always hopeful, so we'll see if there's, just we're gonna continue going on. The town report went to the printers, so again, if anyone finds any mistakes, it was just a test. We're just checking to see who's paid attention. There is the Village North Sidewalk Project. The bids, we had our bid opening.
Oh, okay.
On Thursday. While they still have to go through and check everything, it was very favorable.
Good, so the
Really good news.
pricing was what we were
Yes,
hoping for.
well,
Great.
even better than we were hoping
Don't
for.
say
It
that.
looks like. But again, they have to go through it. The state goes through and checks everything. So we're waiting to get that information. But
Great.
it does look like a good news, and this project will be able to go forward. So likely this spring, actually of this year, we're going to start construction. So we finally will have that segment of the sidewalk from the mobile station on north to the NRG to Riggs Road would make that connection. So that was good news. And we've just been, preparing for this meeting and getting a lot of feedback, which was really good. We had a lot of public feedback, a lot of people that stood up and took notice and knew this was going to be an impact in their town, and they provided a voice, which is what we want. So that was really good, and it was worth the time it took to upload all of those comments, because we value that and we really want the public participation. So that was great. That's all I have.
Okay. Good, thank you, and thanks for, the decision to move up to this room obviously was the right one. There were some questions coordinating with VCAM, so that was great work. Select Board Forum?
I would just like to say I was really pleased to read Doug Olafson's report about the police, and I was very impressed that when I looked at his wonderful graphs and pie charts, that the main thing that the police are spending time on is traffic, and drug incidents, robberies, all that is really low. So it's medical assists and traffic, as I recall, were the biggest things. So I think they're doing a great job of community policing.
It is community policing, yeah. It's being demonstrated. Anything else? Yeah, go ahead.
So last night, again, I had the pleasure of attending the Seaview Girls Basketball Calcutta. And they do a lot of community interaction. I mean, they send Christmas cards, they do everything. Happy to report once again, the Hinesburg businesses were really the main donor of their prizes. That was really good to see. So it's a great program. The administration at Seaview, I can't say enough good things about them and the coaches. They're great.
Great.
So it's nice to be able to support that program.
And that powerhouse. Good program.
It's not going to stop anytime soon.
Yeah,
either.
it's incredible. It's really incredible.
So, yeah, it is.
All right, anyone else on the Select Board Forum? Review the minutes from the 4th of February.
I'll make the motion for you.
Okay.
I guess I would like to somehow acknowledge that this is the last...
We're getting there.
Okay, never mind.
So the next is minutes from February 4th.
Make the motion? Second.
Okay, with any comments or corrections?
Anything
Yep.
you bring up, yep, absolutely.
All right, I had a few items, but if anybody else? Sure. On the attending the meeting, for some reason, Jeff is on the top row, and then it says, see attached list for everyone else. I'm not quite... Okay, so since we didn't do anyone else, I'm not trying to say he's not worthy, or we are, but,
Either put everybody else on or... take
yeah,
them off and put them on
right.
the list,
And then,
You don't ever include yourself, though.
you could, yeah. Well, it's at the end,
Oh, okay, yeah.
and at the end, you say submitted, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Page 2, down at the bottom.
Yeah, shouldn't you be signing in, Val?
Not if I don't say anything.
Right near the end of the, I guess it's the 3 paragraphs up at the end, it says, he went on to day that lot 15 is a, and I think he went on to say that lot 15 is a commercial property. Do you see that one?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Second page.
Then the next paragraph down, which is only 2 sentences long, Lenore Budd asked if the board, I think instead of if they know, just knows what it would cost to purchase. I guess it doesn't sound that bad right now either way, but it seemed funny when I read it the first time. So you can change that if you want. In the last sentence of page 2, Phil explained the issue is that by February 14th, there needs to be a decision if the board will, rather than deny the applicant based on the town map, the board will pursue eminent domain based on the town map. On the 3rd page, question and answer period for residents. The last sentence, Joanna White addressed the danger of the current configuration of the, and I think we should just insert Route 116 Lampman's in front of intersection.
116 Charlotte.
Yeah, Route 116 Charlotte, yeah, just, because we haven't mentioned what it was. That was what I had.
That's what you were talking about above that, but I see what you mean, it needs to be clearer. Yeah, it
Doesn't say it anywhere.
But this particular.
Yeah, if it says just Route 116 / Lampman / Charlotte Road intersection. Anyway, that's all I had. Any other? Thank you for doing those, Val. All those in favor of approving the minutes with those adjustments, say aye.
Aye.
Andrea?
No, aye.
Aye. All right, so that passed. And we have warrants.
I'll make a motion to approve these warrants to include payroll as submitted by the town clerk.
Second.
All right, and we reviewed them.
Yep, we
I noticed the highway crew was quite high. There was a lot of overtime because of the ice storm, I'm sure.
They have been
So
working
they
ridiculous
have been,
hours.
I'm sure. They needed a little break. We had a couple sunny days, probably, to fix their equipment because more snow coming. All right, so all those in favor of approving the warrants, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And then last item, our member Andrea did not want to make a big deal of this, but, so we aren't making a big deal. But is there anybody on the board right now who would like to make a motion to adjourn this meeting?
I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
Is there a second?
If we say no, then
That's right.
we're kind of stuck.
No, I just would like to say that I'm very grateful to have served with all of you and with all my fellow board members. It's been a really good learning experience and taught me a lot of patience.
It's been an incredible.
And so, anyway, that's why I don't want to make a big deal about it. Because who would think you'd be upset about quitting something that is sometimes extremely boring? Come on.
Although
to
you've
be
never-
honest. And, no, but it really is a pleasure to have served the community and to have had the privilege of working with us as a team. And I always wanted to reply to people that each of us as an individual has no power, and that we really have to work as a board. And it's very unusual to have that relationship, and the fact that it takes quite a while to develop trust among each other. You know, for
I don't know, it seems like the first 10 years that I was on the board, it was very stable. And, you kind of got to know each other, but it's hard to get to know each other when we have to work in such prescribed manners that we can't have just the banter that goes on between us, that you kind of understand each other's humor and whatnot, or sarcasm. So if there's anything that I regret, it's that we haven't found more ways to develop those abilities to work as a team. And it's just hard because of the way that we have to follow Robert's rules and open meeting, and, it's like we're following a little script. And it's hard, but I think that's also what makes it a challenge, and it's good to learn those ways of working. It's also very interesting that when I began on the board, most people on the board were small business owners themselves. And so for us to make decisions, we all as small business owners are used to making a decision ourselves, And so it was really interesting to watch how we would work with each other. And as the board shifted and we got other people on the board who were employees, it brought a different perspective. So I think we have a really good mix of people and perspectives and learning that. And certainly there's just been a lot of changes in what the board has to address. So it's been good, and I'm really glad to have done it, and I'm not going away.
I was going to say, you're not going away.
I'll say just a couple things. One is, in my town report, I mentioned this year, and I put a few things in, as examples of how you've served this town. But, here I am right now, I'm looking at this ash floor from the town forest, and I'll bet dollars to donuts, I know you supported the town forest from the start, and you probably had your hand in this.
Yeah, it was my idea.
And then you look at the park outside, it just goes on and on. So your service to this town is unbelievable. But for me personally, what you've demonstrated to me as a select board, a new person coming on the select board, how you continually put the focus on what we're here for is to serve the public and to get public input. And had always been the first to say, well, maybe we should get somebody's opinion. Maybe we should bring somebody else in. Maybe this isn't a decision that we should make right now. And so this small town government democracy, you live it. Even though you have your own opinion, and people might think it's not the best for the town, or they might think it's the best for the town. In the end, I think you value that over everything, and trust that in the end will result in the best overall for everybody. So that's what I appreciate the most. Not everything else within the town, but that piece goes a long way.
Thanks.
So I'll say something, Andrea. We often disagree, but it's been a pleasure working with you on this board. I think we've learned from each other, and I've always admired your commitment to serving on this, because it's a ton of work. People don't realize. And to do it 27 years? Mind-boggling.
Yeah,
So.
sometimes I think I know.
So the town thanks you, I thank you, so enjoy your vacation.
Thanks, Tom.
Yeah, and when I was thinking about this, I remember the very first committee I served on was the Village Steering Committee, and it was George Dameron, who I saw here tonight, who sort of brought me in. But one of the things he said was, go talk to Andrea. I remember him talking about, we were out here in this space, and that was part of that inspiration for all of these years of being involved. And I agree, you're not going to go anywhere. I mean, you can't. It's not in your DNA. I look forward to seeing how you choose to stay engaged at whatever level, because you will. And I look forward to the changes that this board is going to make with just not having you on the board. It's not a better or worse thing, it's just going to be different. And as with everybody here, truly thank you for like huge commitment. And like only somebody who is a former select board member or a current select board member understands. Like, it's a huge commitment. And think about everything just today, just coming into this meeting tonight. Like, and you talked about it. Yeah, you talked about it like for 2 nights ahead of time. You kind of, it churns in your stomach, right? And as you work through everything, anyway, thank you.
And I have to thank you too. I'm here because of you. I wouldn't have even considered running for select board if it hadn't been for you, and you certainly helped me in the running. And you're like a role model that I know I never will be able to achieve the level of commitment and understanding and brilliance that you've shown, but it's up there as something for me to look up to every day when I'm doing select board work. So thank you for all you've done for this town, and thank you for not going anywhere.
And I will actually add to that. I mean, I appreciate your role here so much, and having someone that equally cares so much about this town. And I think that's just symbolizes the passion that's for this town, and the things, we can all be on different sides of an issue, but there's a lot of passion and care for this town, and you are definitely an example of that. And so I've appreciated getting to know you, as I said, and I've appreciated getting to know you on this board, and just watching your love for the town. And that's something I respect greatly. So, thank you.
I kind of was thinking of you when I thought what my new role might be, and I was thinking, I want to be the grandmother in town where you get to do the fun stuff.
There we go.
And
There we go.
leave the other stuff to the
Right.
parents.
Well,
You know, like organizing some parties.
absolutely.
And
You
stuff
and
like
I can
that.
talk.
Yeah.
So, thank you.
All right, so there is a motion to adjourn by Andrea. I don't think it was seconded.
It was a second.
Tom seconds it. So with a little bit of sadness,
We still have town meeting. She'll be at town meeting.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, I'll be there. Yeah, but I always, that is such a not fun experience, to be sitting up there and you just, you know, most people are very gracious and nice, but it does feel odd that all the lights are on you and you can't answer some simple question.
well, Tom said he was going to answer all the questions that are difficult. All right, so all in favor of adjourning, say aye.
Aye.
Aye.